Welcome to Christian World News. I'm Ephraim Graham. We want to begin with this. Islamic rebels are on the move in Syria. The group, once identified with al-Qaeda, is conquering territory and has captured Aleppo. That is the second largest city. While Israel is closely watching these events, Christians inside Syria fear they could be facing persecution. Chris Mitchell reports now from Jerusalem.
Islamist rebel forces launched a major offensive against the Syrian regime and now control the second largest city, Aleppo.
This is unprecedented for the rebellion. The rebellion never held all of Aleppo, and it was expelled from all of Aleppo because it held the eastern part of the city for a while in 2016.
The rebel forces continued their advance further south. Jonathan Spire is a Syrian expert with the Middle East Forum.
This must surely be a very major blow both to the Assad regime and indeed, I would say, to the larger regional alliance of which the Assad regime forms a part, namely that regional alliance headed by Islamic Republic of Iran.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the Syrian situation.
We are constantly following what is happening in Syria. We are determined to defend the interests of the State of Israel and to protect the achievements of the war.
As of now, I would say there are not major implications for Israel because all of this, of course, is taking place in northwest Syria, which is an appreciable amount of distance away from the Golan Heights and Syria's border with Israel.
Meanwhile, the Syrian Christians in Aleppo worry they're in grave danger because of the Islamist rebels now in control.
When we've seen them take over areas in the past where Christians live, Christians have been treated badly, up to and including forced conversions to Islam and other acts of that nature.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Nadine Manza, president of the International Religious Freedom Secretariat with more than 20 years experience speaking up for the persecuted church, joins us now for more. So, Nadine, what can you tell us about this rebel group and why Syria's Christians are fearful of persecution?
Right. So right now we have a coalition of the Syrian opposition groups that includes HTS, which is a known terrorist organization with a history that is of Sharia law under the areas they govern. They have been taking, the regime has been falling. They've taken Aleppo, they're Hama, they're onto Homs. But what we have found in the areas that they're controlling is we haven't seen targeting of Christians, Yazidis, or even Christian converts or other religious minorities. They've actually announced safety for them. What we have seen is the Islamist the Turkish-backed Islamist group, which is called the SNA, Syrian National Army. They have been, however, targeting religious minorities, Kurds, while these other groups are attacking the Assad areas. So you have a little bit of chaos going on. In the middle of all of that, of course, ISIS is rising and trying to take land as well. So you have the Syrian Democratic Forces from the northeast, which is a place with positive religious freedom conditions, pushing out of their areas to try to grab areas in villages to protect people from ISIS trying to take them. So there's a good reason that the Christians are concerned, but we haven't seen the opposition targeting them per se. But for us, it's not just, we're glad that they're not being targeted, but we also want them to be treated as equal citizens and to be able to stay in Syria and have a safe future there.
Absolutely. Tell us exactly about these Christians in Syria. Who are they? And as you said, they're not facing persecution now, but have they suffered that in the past?
Oh, yes, terribly. The Christians can continue to leave because of so much persecution. While Assad said he favored Christians, what he did was use them as hostages. They had to support him or he would send their children to the front lines and give them conscription to his military. So the Christians have been pawns from lots of different groups over the years. When they've been under these harsh Islamic groups in northern Syria, for instance, places that Turkey invaded, all the Christians pretty much had to leave. If they didn't, they faced horrific violations. In Idlib, they have Sharia law there, and HTS does govern Idlib. And New York Times last year wrote an article about the last Christian left in Idlib. So they had all left. So this has not been a friendly place for Christians under the opposition. They are promising that's going to change. They promise that HTS will not be ruling Aleppo, that it will be a civilian government, and that they will not have Sharia law. But we're all watching quite carefully to see how this will impact Christians.
Indeed. What are Christians in the areas telling you their greatest concern is right now?
I've been talking to them all over. At this point, they're finding it hard to believe they're safe, especially the Christian converts, that some of them are pretty public about their conversion. But they're watching and they're seeing so far that they haven't been a target. The other fear is that Russia will do what they've done so often, as well as the Assad regime, which is carpet bomb areas and target civilian populations. So there's a lot of fear that they'll be caught up in that. Lots of fear, but so far we haven't seen them being targeted specifically, except, as I mentioned earlier, by the Turkish-backed militias who are attacking, kidnapped 150 people that were refugees from Afrin that were in the Shaba region of Aleppo. It's an area not controlled by HTS or that group. It's controlled by these Turkish-backed militias. They kidnapped 150 of them, and we were told there were executions and killings while they were kidnapping people. So we are seeing that kind of violence from the Turkish-backed militias, but not so much from the opposition that's part of the HTS rebels that are taking over these large cities at the moment.
All right, Nadine Menza, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your insight today.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.